Hello, I'm Erik Gaikowski, AARP South Dakota State Director. Thank you for joining us tonight and participating in this live telephone town hall. Millions of Americans experience fraudulent schemes every year, resulting in tens of billions of dollars landing in the pockets of criminals. We are here today to talk about proactive measures that we can take to protect ourselves and our families from identity theft and fraud. The AARP Fraud Watch Network is designed to give South Dakota residents access to tools and resources that can help protect them, their families, and friends from identity theft and fraud. It's free and open to everyone of any age, AARP members and non-members alike. To sign up, you can call 877-908-3360 or visit aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork. That's aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork. The South Dakota Office of the Attorney General sees firsthand the serious threat that identity theft and other forms of fraud pose to South Dakotans. Tonight, we welcome a special guest, Brent Kempema, the state's Deputy Attorney General. We're going to hear from him shortly, and we will also have time for questions and answers, including an opportunity for you to ask questions live on this call. If you would like to ask a question at any time during the call, just press *3 on your telephone keypad to be connected with an AARP staff member who will note your name and question and then place you in the queue. Or you can also just feel free to leave a comment. If you're just joining us, I'm Erik Gaikowski, State Director of AARP South Dakota, and today we're talking about frauds and scams, what you can look for and what to do if you think you have experienced a scam. AARP South Dakota is here to provide you with resources and information on issues that matter to you and your family. We are discussing fraud because we want all South Dakotans to stay safe and protect their identities and their pocketbooks from scammers. I am pleased to now introduce our special guest, South Dakota Deputy Attorney General Brent Kempema. Brent is a 1997 graduate of the University of South Dakota, earning a Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science. He is a 2000 graduate of the University of South Dakota School of Law, earning his Juris Doctorate. After law school, Brent served as Walworth County Deputy State's Attorney until 2003, when he went to work offering pro bono legal services for victims of domestic violence. In 2004, Brent was appointed as Special Assistant Attorney General with the Department of Social Services. In 2012, Attorney General Marty Jackley appointed Brent as an Assistant Attorney General, where he would eventually lead the Criminal Litigation Division as Deputy Attorney General. Brent was appointed Chief Deputy in 2023. During his years as a prosecutor, Brent has successfully handled numerous high-profile sexual assault and homicide cases. Outside of the courtroom, Brent assists prosecutors from around the country as a faculty member for the National Association of Attorneys General. We are so pleased you could join us today, Brent, and now I would like to turn it over to you for some opening remarks.
Well, thank you for Erik for the kind words. It's great to be here and involved in this worthwhile endeavor. As you had mentioned, I am the Chief Deputy for the Attorney General's Office, which basically means that it is my job to assist the Attorney General in running the office here. It's a rather large office with multiple divisions. Under us, we've got the Division of Criminal Investigation. On our attorney side, we have a criminal litigation division, a civil litigation division, a Medicaid fraud control unit, an appellate division, and one division that we're here in particular to talk about tonight, which is our Consumer Protection Division. Last year, that Consumer Protection Division had 68,038 contacts. What that means, those would be complaints from consumers. We've taken calls. We've handled inquiries. We deal not only with the consumers, but the business owner aspect or business side of things. As a part of what our consumer division does is sometimes we recover money that has been taken in scams and from businesses who have perpetrated tortious acts or acts which resulted in harm to South Dakotans. I think last year we recovered, a little over $6.3 million in recoveries. That division handles a wide variety of issues dealing with credit cards, internet sales, our car lemon laws, travel scams or travel issues, issues with charities, healthcare complaints, landlord-tenant issues, door-to-door sales scams, really scams of all sorts. There's really no shortage of scams out there. I think what is unfortunate is that only about 30% of scams are reported. If there's any kind of silver lining in that, in previous years that number's been at 20%. So maybe the silver lining is that we're doing a little bit better on getting the word out and helping people protect themselves a little bit. But there's still more work to be done, and that's why we do like to do events like this one.
Awesome. Thanks for that introduction, Brent, and I appreciate your partnership with AARP South Dakota. For those of you just joining the call, this is AARP South Dakota. We're hosting a call today with the South Dakota Deputy Attorney General, Brent Kempema, as we talk about frauds and scams. This is an interactive call, so if you would like to ask a question at any time during the call, just press *3 on your telephone keypad to be connected with an AARP staff member who will note your name and question and place you in the queue. We are ready to take callers' questions now, so again, press *3 to be connected. While we're waiting for those questions, let's start with an audience poll question. So please listen to all 4 response options before answering, and then record your vote using your telephone keypad. According to the AARP Fraud Watch Network, how many consumers in the United States have experienced some type of fraud this year? Press 1 if you think it's 26%, press 2 if you think it's 42%, press 3 if you think it's 67%, press 4 if you think it's 82%, or press 5 if you don't know. Again, the question is, how many consumers in the United States have experienced some type of fraud this year? 1 for 26%, 2 if you think it's 42%, 3 if it's 67%, 4 if you think it's 82%, or 5 if you're not sure. So while we are waiting to tabulate the responses, let's go to a question from Facebook or somewhere. Let's see what's. Oh, here's a question. So Brent, why are older adults a common target of scams?
Well, there are obviously no simple answers to these, but, older people in particular tend to be more trusting and were brought up to take people at their word. Scammers take advantage of that. Unfortunately, the people who get scammed are the most trusting, and our seniors tend to be some of our more trusting people. Another reason is seniors are more likely to answer their phones. A lot of scammers choose to call between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., and that's when seniors are at home. A lot of our seniors, of course, are retired, so they're at home when others might be at work, so they would obviously be more susceptible to taking those calls. And another thing that we notice is that our seniors, particularly in South Dakota, are really responsible individuals, and they want to do things like make sure their bills get paid. So if a scammer calls and tells them that they owe money for something, they're going to want to take care of it and take care of what they believe is their responsibility, when in fact it's just a scammer preying upon them.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we see across the nation. Appreciate that. So just want to remind everybody, press *3 on your telephone keypad to be connected with an AARP staff member to get your question live on air, or simply leave a comment with that AARP staff member, and they'll provide it to me to ask the question in the queue. So I do have a question that came through online from Gary in Yankton. What are the most common types of scams your office sees?
I mean, we see all kinds of scams, really. One of the more common ones would be the sweepstakes scams. We're seeing romance scams where somebody, portrays to be somebody interested in a relationship. And of course, there's always the grandparent scams that come through. I mean, this one has nearly touched my family. Unfortunately, I had a family member knew that what I did for a living, so they called me to ask if it was a scam. But an individual might call up and portray themselves as being a grandson or a granddaughter who's been in some sort of trouble, whether it be legal or medical. Oftentimes it's legal trouble, saying they need money for a lawyer, for bail money, things like that, and ask for that money from a grandparent. The grandparent, obviously concerned, wants to help, is asked for the money to wire it or send gift cards, things like that. And these scammers are getting more sophisticated as more information is becoming available. They oftentimes will likely know the grandson or grandchild's name and use that as a part of their scam. These are sophisticated individuals who are pulling off these scams, and they take advantage of information that might be available online through social media sites or other places on the internet to go ahead and try to get a grandparent to provide money to the scammers.
Appreciate that. I think those are definitely things that we're seeing as pretty common across states as well. I don't know, Brent, but we must be pretty intimidating because people are asking a lot of questions online, but they're not asking them live with us. So I've got Jeff in Watertown asking the question: are there more scams circulating during the holiday season? What should we look out for this time of year?
Yes. There are oftentimes, this is a busy time for scammers. One of the reasons is, whether people are home, they're not out and about doing other things. But yeah, there are definitely things that we can certainly look for. Around this time of year, a lot of people are getting packages delivered to them. So a common technique or that scammers are using is, somebody might receive a text message saying that there's a trouble delivering a package. They might get something that purports to be from the Postal Service or from FedEx saying, we're unable to deliver your package. Please provide us some information and we'll make sure to get you your package. So they're just gathering information to exploit later. Right now, some people are hard-pressed a little bit for cash with the holidays, so we're seeing sweepstakes scams come in. So, one of the things you could do is ask yourself, hey, did I even enter a sweepstakes? So, I mean, if you didn't, obviously, the call you're getting is likely a scam, right? When you see that text message scam about a package being delivered, ask yourself first, did you order anything? I was just talking to our head of consumer protection today and noted that I got one of those text messages saying I had a package that was stuck in customs and wanted me to click on a link to provide more information. So obviously nobody is immune to these types of scams. I mean, really, it's some of the things you can do is to be vigilant. If you get an email or a text message asking you to click on a link, don't click that link. If, for example, you might have had a package that you're waiting for and get that, don't click that text message. Go to the source. Go to either your sender or call up UPS and say, hey, did you send me this text message or this email? It's always best to, if somebody wants to do something over the phone or through, an email or text message, don't trust that. Do your own independent work. look up the phone number. And we used to say, go to the phone book. I don't know if we have many phone books anymore, but there are other ways to get phone numbers for stuff as opposed to just looking at, what might be in an email as a purported contact. So go those extra few steps to do your own verification, independent of, what you might be being told by a caller or being told by an email or a text message.
Yeah, those are great common sense solutions. I joke that my wife does all the online ordering, so I know there are scams when people text me, but I think that's definitely things that you want to look out for. So you mentioned holidays, you mentioned a little bit about charities. Right now, again, holidays coming up, and as well as some unrest in other parts of the world. There are a lot of charity scams that prey on people's desire to help others in need. So can you tell us a little bit about how we can recognize these scams and what's the best way to lend support?
Sure. So asking questions is a great way to start. If you get a solicitor regarding a charity, asking for money as a charity, ask what percentage of this charity goes to overhead. If you don't get a good response to that, that might be an indication that something is amiss. If you ask for literature about the charity and told that it's not available, or they might say it's a cost savings of matter, so we don't provide that kind of stuff, that's probably a red flag. There are a couple of great websites out there that you can use to kind of look up charities and see if that might be something that's first legitimate, and second, if it's a charity you're interested in giving to. One of those is give.org, and then there's also charitynavigator.org. Those are great resources for people looking to make charitable contributions to use. Another thing to do to protect yourself, and this goes back to the earlier comment, is make contact yourself directly with the charity. Don't donate money right on that call. Do your own independent looking and find out the number, contact information of that charity, and talk directly with them, as opposed to from the call you received. And the last thing I'd say is it's usually best to give locally. If you give to a local charity that, is known to you, or it's a charity that you've donated to in the past, those are kind of best practices.
Excellent. We've got Cindy from Provo. Cindy, you are live. Would you ask your question?
Yeah, I have two questions. The first one is because I've had that you got a package deal, respond. First off, I just wanted to ask, how do they get your number? And then the next thing is, recently I've been called repeatedly about timeshares, and I wondered if that was a new scam in South Dakota. The first question that you had asked is, how do they get your number? First, it's probably random. Okay, there's nothing that you did wrong or could do differently to prevent that. It's just random. I get them. We all get them. There are auto dialers out there that are just hitting random numbers, and it's luck of the bad draw that your number is picked. Your second question dealt with timeshares, right? No, those aren't new scams to South Dakota. They've been around. They are going around. These things tend to go in cycles a little bit. That's one that we are seeing again come around. And again, it's kind of that time of year when these sorts of scams rear their ugly heads.
Cindy, thank you so much for that question. And Brent, you're absolutely right. Those scams seem to, what's new is old and what's old is new. They just certainly keep recirculating. question for you. This is something that's been popping up in a lot of states across the nation. We've been hearing reports about these unfair service agreements where real estate companies are signing exclusive future right to listing agreements with homeowners, but then this creates a lien on the property and homeowners may face financial penalties. There are other state attorney generals taking action against the specific real estate company. Is your office seeing anything like this happening in South Dakota? And are you potentially looking into the issue?
We really haven't gotten any of these types of complaints here in South Dakota. I mean, we have started to receive some complaints about, statewide really, about complaints regarding properties being sold in which the actual owner has never agreed to sell the property, or in most cases didn't even know that their property is being listed. So we're starting to see a few of those types of complaints. So what we're doing really is we're working with the Real Estate Commission to develop a set of tips that real estate agents can look for to recognize when this kind of event is happening. But as far as your original question, no, we really haven't seen that popping up here.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so you're talking like deed scams and things like that have been popping up?
Yep.
Got it. I've got a question again back online. Actually, before I go to that question, for those of you on the call, I just want to remind everybody, press *3 on your telephone keypad to be connected with an AARP staff member to get your name, question, and place you in the queue to be on live, have your question asked live on the call today. Again, *3, and we'll get you live with our guest, Brent. So while we're waiting for more folks to ask a question, I'm going to go to, I've got John and T. What about payment apps like Zelle and Venmo? That's showing up more as a payment option online. Should we use those?
I can tell you that I personally use Venmo. So yeah, so far those are okay. I would again say always use some common sense, but we're not getting complaints about those apps or forms of payments. Like I said, I use Venmo on occasion, but always say, a lot of times you have these on your phone, you need to make sure that all of your apps are updated, your phone is updated, things like that, to make sure your phone is as secure as it can be. If you suspect that something potentially has bad happened with the use of one of those apps, I would really encourage you to reach out to our Consumer Protection Division and ask. I often will go to our consumer folks, and whenever I have one of these transactions that I might think is suspect, I'll go and I'll figure out, okay, it usually checks out to be fine. But it never hurts to ask, and we're here to help answer those questions.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And I've got another question from Rachel in Rapid City. She says, I plan to give gift cards to loved ones for Christmas, but I've heard scammers can steal balances off the racks at stores. Any tips to be as safe as possible when buying gift cards?
One of the first things I would say is look for tampering with the package, scratched off. A lot of those have the scratch off things where you can't see the numbers until they're scratched off. Look for that. Those would be the big things to look for. And remember, get a receipt and keep that receipt in case there is a problem down the road.
Awesome. I appreciate that. I'm one of those that buys a lot of gift cards, especially for my staff, so I'm sure they appreciate me looking out for them from getting scammed. So a question back from my own sense. So AARP South Dakota, we often see stories in the news or hear stories from folks that we listen to news about elder abuse. Most instances of elder abuse happen behind closed doors, often by people that victims know and trust. Can you give us some of those warning signs?
Sure. Really, unfortunately, abuse comes in many forms. There's, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, there's neglect, and there's financial exploitation. Each of those has really something that we can look for in be cognizant of. With physical abuse, things that you would kind of pay attention to. Have there been a lot of visits to the emergency room or a healthcare provider? Do you notice unexplained injury or complaints about injury without seeing an obvious injury? Any unusual burns or bruising, suggesting, that an instrument such as a belt or cigarettes have been used? Watch for passive or withdrawn behavior in your loved ones. Those are some of the more common things to look for with physical abuse. With respect to emotional abuse, watch if you see threatening, belittling kind of behavior going on with a caregiver towards an individual. Behavior from the elderly person that might mimic dementia, such as rocking, mumbling to oneself. Often people who have been emotionally abused appear disturbed, scared, hopeless, have low self-esteem. They often will avoid eye contact and not talk openly. Might appear anxious, shy, depressed, or otherwise withdrawn. Might notice sudden changes in eating or sleeping patterns. Or they're kind of kept inside and not allowed to have other people visit or call. Those are some of the things you would look for with emotional abuse. With sexual abuse, some of the things that would be indicators. Unfortunately, sexually transmitted diseases happen. There might be, obviously this isn't all that noticeable other than to maybe a medical provider, but injuries to the genitalia. Might notice difficulty sitting or walking, maybe a fear of being alone with their caretaker, and oftentimes the elderly person just might report it, and that should be taken seriously. As far as concerns with neglect, we would look for obvious signs of malnutrition, a lack of cleanliness, injuries that haven't been taken care of, poor hygiene, soiled clothing or a bed. They're often dressed in torn or dirty clothing. If you notice obvious signs of fatigue or listlessness, begging for food and water, or they're left unattended for long periods of time. Those are some of the things that we can look for. Maybe most relevant to our conversation today, when we're talking about financial exploitation, some of the things we would look for is changes in spending behavior by the elder, changes in patterns of spending by a friend or relative who have unexplained money. You might see some unusual banking activity, unpaid bills, or items around the household or cash around the household that's gone missing. Or suspicious changes in wills, power of attorneys, titles to vehicles, insurance policies, things like that. Those are all, possible signs that, further investigation could be warranted. I would highly encourage anybody who's seeing these types of things to, again, reach out to our office. We're here to help. We at the end or at any point, I guess I can provide our phone number and website. But the big thing is if you suspect something, say something is the old saying. So we would rather take a good-natured call about a concern than have somebody and it be unfounded than somebody to be exploited or taken advantage of and nobody calls. so help is not coming.
Yeah, appreciate that. We're certainly, again, just very pleased with our partnership with your office and the folks in the banking industry, the financial industry, the folks in our healthcare industry that are looking after just those signs that you're talking about. So appreciate that. I've got another question on a caller on the line. Dwayne from Newell. Dwayne, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you're live. What's your question?
Well, I have a question. How do you protect your information when it's on the computer and you didn't put that information on the computer? It's put on like from the courthouse. It's hard to protect yourself that way. If there's something that could be done where your personal information can't be put out there. And my other question is could that AI be a problem? They start using AI, or can AI help fight scammers?
Two great questions, Dwayne. Appreciate both of those. As far as, personal information being out there, some of that, quite frankly, is going to be a public record. That, unless there's a change to some of our open records laws, things like that, might be available to scammers. But, we do have laws in place on the types of information that can be redacted from our open records law. So, there are some steps being taken to protect some of that, but unfortunately some of it's going to be out there. Some of the information that is out there, and often the information that is being utilized, is information that's voluntarily given. A lot of that is coming, for what people are putting out there on social media accounts. Scammers, can, really harvest that information to get some information about individuals. And some of it, we do have laws in place as far as, if you've got personal information with an institution or a business or your medical providers, there are laws that say those folks need to protect that information. And if for some reason there's a breach, because, scammers and ill-doers do find ways to breach some of those systems, those entities are required by law to notify the people that have been impacted by those breaches, and so that your information, you can take additional steps to protect your information. Things such as, reporting to the credit bureaus that your information has been taken, and you can kind of shut down access to people running credit checks on you. One thing that you can do is you can check your credit report to see if your information has been compromised and people are using it. I think, you can go to annualcreditreport.com and do a check with your on your credit report and put a freeze on it on credit. And your second question really is an interesting one. Artificial intelligence, these programs are great. I think there's going to be a good benefit to the use of artificial intelligence in a lot of things, but there's always the yin and the yang of things, right? So with the good is going to come the bad, and people are going to use artificial intelligence to do bad things. And people are going to use artificial intelligence to try to stop people from doing bad things. So as with all technologies, there's going to be pros and cons. We, as the good people, need to do our due diligence in making sure that, we keep up on technology with the bad guys. It's not always easy. We find a solution to stop what they're doing, and they're going to do something else. So guess what? Then we're going to have to find a new response. Whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's the creation of the internet. I mean, this is just something that goes along with the advancement of technologies and different systems that we have in place. Due diligence on our part is our best defense against that. Thanks, Dwayne.
Thanks, Brent. Dwayne, really appreciate those two questions because those are definitely two questions that we get when we're out and about at events as well. So I've got one more question from online, but before I do that, I forgot that I had to ask the poll question. So I'm gonna give you all the results of that poll question. So we asked, according to the AARP Fraud Watch Network, how often is someone's identity stolen? The majority of you responded correctly. The correct answer is 82%. So we got a really smart audience here tonight, Brent. So one question coming from online, I guess this is actually from my staff team. The team hears a lot from people when we're hosting events. So if you can set my team straight, is it safer to use your debit card or a credit card for online shopping?
Definitely credit cards. They often have more protections than your debit card. Obviously, not all debit cards and credit cards are treated the same, but as a general rule, you are safer in using your credit card when shopping online.
Awesome. Appreciate that. So I have a question myself. Knowing that legislative session is coming up relatively quickly, just asking you, is there any things that your office are planning to bring forward in January or February during session that might be of interest to those on the call tonight?
I think all of our proposed legislation this year is going to be interesting, but for maybe different reasons than our callers. Specifically with respect to the fraud, consumer protection related issues, we do not have anything in the hopper right now on those issues. We're obviously keeping our eye open for things that other bills that might be brought by either the banking industry or others that might relate to or affect the South Dakota consumers. There's often bills that we don't see coming that we obviously take a great interest in. Either to get behind and support, maybe bolster up a little bit in a way that can better protect consumers, or just to make sure nothing kind of, I don't want to say slips through the cracks, but might go unnoticed otherwise. And, so we've got our legislative team here with an eye out, an eye geared towards, that kind of defense and reactions within the legislative session this year.
Awesome. Appreciate that. It's always nice to know what our partners are working on when the session comes around, for sure. So it's kind of come to that time, Brent, where we start to wrap things up. So on behalf of AARP South Dakota, I want to say thank you to everyone for taking part in today's telephone town hall discussion about frauds and scams. Thank you so much for all the great questions. If you have more questions or would like additional information, you can check out the AARP Fraud Watch Network at aarp.org/fraud. We would like to sincerely thank South Dakota Deputy Attorney General Brent Kempema for joining us today. As we near the end of the call, I want to give our guests an opportunity to follow up on any other questions or share closing comments. Brent, is there anything you would like to share in closing?
I just really like to, thank you for the opportunity to speak with with the town hall today. I would just remind people, be vigilant, ask questions. do a little bit of your own independent research. And please, I teased this earlier, we're here to take your calls. I've got a phone number that I'd like to provide your listeners. It's 800-300-1986. That's to be used in state. If we've got listeners or joinees from out of state, you could always call 605-773-4400. Or you can just go to our website, consumer.sd.gov. There's a lot of great information on that website. There are ways to touch base with us online through that website to report suspicious behaviors. We're really here to help, to take calls, to provide as much guidance as we can. I know we only got to take a few calls today, and there might be somebody out there with more calls, but if they do, please reach out. We're here to help.
Brent, can you give that number one more time?
Sure. It's 800-300-1986.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So once again, thank you, Brent, and thanks for all of you for listening. We hope you gained some helpful information and tools to spot and fight frauds and scams. We apologize if we were not able to answer your specific question tonight, but if you stay on the line, you can leave us a voicemail with your question or comment. You can also send us an email at sdaarp@aarp.org. And don't forget that you can access valuable information from the AARP Fraud Watch Network anytime by visiting aarp.org/fraud. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.